Bonus day at my company had a script. The VP would send the email at 9 a.m. sharp. Managers would just happen to be walking the floor. People refreshed their banking apps like it was a sport. By 9:07, the break room sounded like a casino. I didn't join them. My bonus statement was sitting in my inbox with a DocuSign tab that said, Review and Accept. And HR had already warned me. Just a heads up, Maya from HR said, pulling me into a small glass room near the elevators. She didn't sit down. That was the first red flag. There's a $75,000 adjustment on yours. She said it like she was telling me the printer was out of toner. I kept my face neutral. Adjustment how? Her smile stayed in place, but her eyes didn't. It'll make sense when you review the letter. I didn't open it. I didn't ask in front of anyone. I didn't cause a scene. I just nodded, walked back to my desk, and typed one note to myself. Document everything. Because I've worked in corporate finance long enough to know what adjustment usually means. Someone is trying to move a problem onto your name. I'm Ethan, 38, senior finance manager at a mid-sized public company that loved the word culture and hated the word controls. We'd just closed a monster client in Q4, multi-year contract, headlines, leadership photo ops. My team had worked late nights for 6 straight weeks, cleaning up revenue recognition issues nobody wanted to admit existed. So when the incentive email hit at 9:02, 2025 incentive compensation statements available, people acted like Christmas came early. My coworker Jordan leaned over the partition. Open it. Tell me you finally cracked 6 figures. I forced a half smile. Not yet. I had a calendar invite from HR titled Quick Sync. No agenda, no prep. Those meetings are never quick, and they're never about sync. Inside the glass room, Maya spoke softly, like we were discussing a layoff list. Before you open your statement, I just want you to know there's a correction line. Correction line, I repeated. For what? She paused too long. Prior period. Prior period of what? I asked. Her eyes flicked down, then back up. Just prior period. It's processed as an adjustment. And the amount? I asked, even though she'd already said it. 75, she replied. Then she added quickly, 1,000. I kept my voice even. Is it adding or subtracting? Another pause, smaller but sharper. It's an adjustment. That was my answer. If it were adding, she would say adding. If it were subtracting, she'd avoid the verb. Okay, I said. I'll review the documentation. Maya exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Great. Payroll closes end of day, so if you can sign today, I'll sign once I understand what I'm signing, I said. Her smile tightened. Of course, totally. Back at my desk, the hallway noise was louder than usual. Cheers, claps, someone yelling, let's go. People were already comparing numbers, talking about vacations, watches, down payments. I opened the shared finance drive and navigated to the payroll ledger summary. Nothing classified, nothing secret, just the internal report my team used to reconcile accruals. Read access, standard. I searched my employee ID. The line item was there, my incentive payout. Then, directly beneath it, a second line that made my stomach go cold. Incentive prior period correction, $75,000, negative. I didn't feel dramatic, I felt focused. I took a screenshot. Then I exported the report to PDF and saved it back to the internal drive with a neutral file name. No personal email, no downloading. Clean chain of custody. Then I opened the DocuSign email without clicking the link and stared at the subject line. FY25 incentive acknowledgement. Acknowledgement? Not statement, not summary. Acknowledgement. Like they needed me to accept a narrative. My phone buzzed. A Teams message from my manager, Caleb. Caleb, you open yours yet? Caleb was the kind of manager who could smile while cutting your budget. Tall, polished, always aligned with leadership. He'd also been unusually involved in compensation this year, asking questions he never asked before. Who was mission critical? Who was over-indexed? Who could take a smaller hit? Me. Not yet. HR pulled me into a meeting. He appeared at my desk 5 minutes later like he was doing a casual walk-by. He leaned on the partition and lowered his voice. Everything okay? HR mentioned an adjustment, I said. I'm reviewing before I sign. Caleb's smile didn't reach his eyes. It's just accounting cleanup. Then it'll be easy to document, I replied. His jaw twitched. Don't overthink it, Ethan. This stuff happens. I looked at him. $75,000 doesn't happen. For a moment, I saw irritation flash across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that smooth managerial calm. Let's talk in my office, he said. I stood up, grabbed my notebook, and followed him down the hall. On the way, I passed the break room. People were celebrating. Someone popped a soda can, like champagne. They looked happy, carefree even. I wondered if any of them understood how fast a company can turn your bonus into a liability. Caleb closed his office door and didn't offer me a seat. That told me the truth before he said a word. He sat down, folded his hands, and said, I need you to sign the acknowledgement today. I didn't sit. Show me the basis for the correction first. His eyes narrowed. It's coming from above. Who above? I asked. He held my stare and said, Leadership decided the pool needed rebalancing. Rebalancing by taking it from my payout? I asked. Caleb's voice stayed calm. You've been compensated well. This isn't personal. I felt something shift inside me, quietly like a lock clicking into place. Because if this wasn't personal, they wouldn't be pressuring me to sign before I understood it. I opened my notebook. Put it in writing, I said. Policy reference, calculation, approver. Caleb's smile returned, thin. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I said. You're making it easier than it should be. He leaned forward. If you delay payroll close, there will be consequences. I nodded once, like I was taking it seriously. Then I said, okay. And I walked out without signing anything. At my desk, I opened the company's ethics and compliance portal and hovered over the button that said, File a report. My cursor stayed there for a full 10 seconds, because I knew the moment I clicked it, there was no going back. Then I clicked. And the first question on the form was simple. Are you reporting fraud, misuse of funds, or a violation of internal controls? I stared at it, thinking about that $75,000 line under my name. And I typed, yes. By lunch, the office still felt like a party. People were swapping screenshots of their deposits like trading cards. Someone ordered cupcakes with the company logo iced on top. Caleb walked around smiling, shaking hands, acting like he'd personally wired everyone their money. I smiled back when I had to. Then I went back to my desk and started building a timeline. I didn't feel my feelings. I didn't rant to coworkers. I didn't call my wife and panic. I did what finance people do when something smells wrong. I pulled documents, preserved versions, and made sure every step I took could be defended later. At 12:06, Maya emailed me again. Subject: Incentive acknowledgement. Action required. Hi, Ethan. Gentle reminder that payroll closes today. Please complete your DocuSign acknowledgement so we can finalize the cycle. Finalize the cycle. That phrase didn't mean finish processing. It meant sign it so we can stop answering you. I replied with one sentence. Hi, Maya. Before I sign, please send the calculation detail, policy reference, and approver for the $75,000 prior period correction. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then she responded, I'll look into it. No attachment, no policy, no detail. I didn't chase her, not yet. Chasing makes you look emotional. I wanted this to look like what it was, a controls issue. So I pulled my own paperwork first. I opened the HR system and downloaded my compensation plan for the year, my incentive target percentage, my eligibility confirmation, my performance review. Everything was clean. My rating was strong. My goals were met. I wasn't on any performance plan. No disciplinary record. Nothing that would logically trigger a clawback. Then I pulled last year's bonus statement. because prior period correction means they're tying it to something historical. Last year was straightforward. No correction line, no retro memo, no overpayment notice. The payout matched the statement. End of story. So what prior period were they claiming? That's when I did the part most people don't think to do. I checked the version history on the bonus pool file. Our incentive pool starts as a spreadsheet from compensation, moves through finance for cost center validation, and then the final totals feed HRIS for payout. I wasn't the owner of the file, but my role gave me read access to the folder because my team reconciled accruals. I opened the folder and pulled up the final file. Then I clicked Version History. My stomach tightened. The final version had been edited 3 nights ago. Editor, Caleb. Time, 10:41 p.m., after hours. No business reason. I opened the earlier version from 2 weeks ago. My payout, normal. Exactly what my target and performance supported. Then I opened the final version. My payout was lower by exactly $75,000. Not rounded, not approximately, exactly. That kind of cut isn't an accident, it's a decision. And next to my line, someone had added a comment that hadn't existed in the older version. I clicked it. Adjustment applied per leadership decision. CHR. I stared at those words for a long moment, because HR had told me it was a prior period correction, but the file comment said, leadership decision. Those are 2 completely different stories. One is an accounting fix. The other is someone using accounting language to disguise a choice. I took screenshots of the version history, showing Caleb's after-hours edit, my original payout in the older version, the reduced payout in the final version, the leadership decision comment. Then I exported both versions to PDF with neutral names. FY25 Incentive Pool. Prior version, FY25 Incentive Pool. Final version. No dramatic labels, no accusations, just evidence. At 2:07 p.m., I called payroll, not because I expected them to confess, because I wanted their limitation on record. Hi, I said. Quick question. What triggers an incentive prior period correction? Line item in the payout ledger. The payroll specialist hesitated. Usually, an overpayment. Overpayment from when? I asked. I'd have to check, she said, and I could hear her scrolling. I waited. Then she said, I can't see the justification. That comes through HR compensation. Okay, I replied. Can you email me that payroll doesn't have access to the basis and that HR comp is the owner of the correction? There was a pause, a small one, but telling. Sure, she said. 5 minutes later, an email landed in my inbox. Ethan, payroll does not have visibility into the supporting detail for the incentive correction line. Please coordinate with HR compensation for documentation. Perfect. Now the company couldn't pretend I never asked. At 3:12 p.m., I got a Teams message from Caleb. Caleb, still need that DocuSign signed today. Me. I'm not signing until I receive documentation for the $75,000 line. Caleb, it's standard cleanup. Don't make this difficult. Me. If it's standard, the standard documentation should exist. He didn't respond for a while. Then he said, come to my office. Now. I walked in. He shut the door hard enough to make the glass rattle. Do you know what you're doing? He asked. I'm asking for support, I said. That's normal. He leaned forward. This isn't a negotiation. The number is what it is. I kept my voice calm. Then explain why it was changed after hours by you, labeled leadership decision, and then presented to me as prior period correction. His face froze for half a second. That told me everything. He recovered quickly. You shouldn't be digging around in files. I've read Access, I said, and if it's legitimate, you shouldn't be worried about me reading it. Caleb's voice dropped. Sign it, and I'll make sure you're taken care of next quarter. That was his offer, not proof, not policy, not transparency, a promise. And it sounded exactly like what it was, a bribe dressed as leadership. I looked at him and said, no. Just one word. No drama. No speech. Caleb stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Then he said, "Fine, but don't expect favors." I nodded once. "I'm not asking for favors. I'm asking for documentation." I left his office and went back to my desk. And that's when I opened the compliance portal again and added the new details to my report. Payroll confirms they have no basis detail. Incentive pool file shows after-hours edits by my manager. Comment indicates leadership decision, conflicting with HR's prior period correction explanation. Manager is pressuring me to sign without documentation and offering future make good verbally. I attached the screenshots. I hit submit. Then I sat there and watched my inbox like a heartbeat monitor, because I knew what comes next in corporate when you touch the wrong wire. Silence. The kind that means someone, somewhere just realized you're not bluffing. The next morning, the office felt quieter around me. Not because people knew the details. They didn't. But corporate gossip has a sixth sense. When someone stops laughing at the break room jokes, people feel it in their bones. At 8:47 a.m., I got my first response from compliance. A number I didn't recognize. Internal caller ID. "This is Aaron," the woman said. "Ethics and compliance. Do you have a minute?" I stood up and stepped into an empty conference room. "Yes." "I'm going to ask direct questions," she said, voice flat and professional. "Answer only what you know?" "Okay. Did HR inform you of a $75,000 adjustment before you opened your incentive statement?" "Yes." "Did they provide documentation?" "No." "Did payroll provide documentation?" "No. They referred me to HR compensation." "Did anyone instruct you to sign anyway?" "Yes, my manager." "And did your manager edit the incentive pool file after hours?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Version history shows his name and timestamp." A pause, then typing. Erin didn't sound shocked. She sounded focused. "Do not discuss this with your manager further," she said. "If anyone pressures you again, document it and notify me." "Understood." Then she added one line that made my throat tighten. "We pulled an initial audit trail last night. Your report wasn't small." I swallowed. "What does that mean?" "It means this isn't just about your payout," she replied. "But I can't share details yet." We ended the call. I sat alone in that conference room for a moment, staring at the blank whiteboard like it could tell me what kind of mess I'd stepped into. Because I'd originally thought this was simple. A manager playing games with bonus allocations. But if compliance was moving this fast, it meant two things. One, the evidence was clean. Two, the risk was bigger than me. When I walked back to my desk, I noticed something immediately. My access to the incentive folder was gone. The link that had worked yesterday. Now, through a permission error, you do not have access. That wasn't routine. That was damage control. And the timing was too perfect to be coincidence. I didn't panic. I didn't email IT. I didn't complain. Because I already had what I needed saved in the right place. All they'd done was confirm that I'd touched the right nerve. At 10:02 a.m., a meeting invite landed on my calendar. Incentive Statement Review attendees. Caleb, Maya, HR, Nolan, Corporate Controller, Nolan. That name made my pulse bump just once. Nolan wasn't HR. Nolan wasn't a culture person. Nolan was the kind of finance executive who spoke in short sentences and lived for control frameworks. If he was on the invite, this had already jumped out of HR's hands. I joined the call exactly on time. Caleb came in first, smiling too hard. Maya looked like she hadn't slept. Then Nolan joined, camera on, expression unreadable. "Let's keep this tight," Nolan said immediately. "Maya, explain the basis for the $75,000 correction line." Maya opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "It's related to a prior period incentive misallocation," she said carefully. Nolan didn't blink. "Was Ethan overpaid in a prior period?" Maya hesitated. "Not exactly." Nolan's eyes narrowed. "Then why is it coded as a prior period correction?" Caleb jumped in fast. "It's the closest category in HRIS. We had to process it somehow." Nolan turned his head slightly like he was looking at something unpleasant. "No," he said. One word, heavy. That's not how internal controls work. You don't pick closest. You pick accurate. Caleb's smile slipped. We can reclass it. It's not... Nolan cut him off. Who approved the reduction? Caleb straightened in his chair. Leadership. Name, Nolan said. Silence. Not awkward silence. Loaded silence. The kind of silence that makes your skin feel too tight. Maya's eyes flicked toward Caleb, then down. Caleb tried to keep control. This is confidential. Nolan's voice stayed calm. So is fraud. Name. Caleb's jaw clenched. This is getting out of hand. Nolan ignored him and looked at me. Ethan, he said, did you sign the acknowledgement? No. Good, Nolan replied. No warmth, just approval. Then he turned back to Maya. Did HR pressure him to sign without documentation? Maya looked like she wanted to disappear. We reminded him payroll was closing. Nolan's tone sharpened. That's a yes. Caleb leaned forward. This is just noise. Ethan's overreacting. Nolan raised a hand without looking at him. Stop talking, Caleb. Caleb froze like he'd been slapped. Nolan continued, voice steady. We have an employee payout, reduced by a fixed amount, mislabeled as a prior period correction, tied to a file edit after hours, with no documentation provided, and pressure to sign. That is not noise. That is a control event. I watched Caleb's face go from irritation to something else. Fear. Nolan clicked something on his keyboard. Erin from compliance is on standby. She pulled the audit logs. Caleb's voice rose. Audit logs for what? Nolan looked directly into the camera. For manual override requests, tied to incentive payouts. Maya's eyes widened. Caleb went still. Then Nolan said the sentence that changed the temperature of the entire call. Caleb, effective immediately, your access to finance systems is suspended pending investigation. Caleb's mouth opened, then closed. You can't just, he started. I can, Nolan said, and I did. He ended the call without another word. My screen went blank. I sat there, staring at my own reflection in the dark monitor. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Because for the first time since Maya said $75,000 adjustment, I wasn't fighting a vague feeling. I was watching reality catch up to paper. At 11:26 a.m., Erin called me again. We pulled the trail, she said. Your manager submitted a manual override request tied to your employee record. My throat tightened. Override for what? Her answer was measured. A one-time discretionary payout, routed through a vendor-coded payee. Your employee record was used as the offset line to keep the incentive pool balanced. I stared at the wall. Vendor-coded payee, offset line. That wasn't a bonus adjustment. That was a cover. Where did the money go? I asked. I can't share recipient details yet, Erin said. But it wasn't you, and it wasn't a payroll error. I felt my hands go cold, then warm, like my body was catching up. Because now the story made sense, and it was worse than I'd imagined. They weren't just cutting me. They were using me, using my name to make their numbers reconcile, and trying to get my signature so it would look like consent. I exhaled slowly. What do you need from me? Nothing else right now, Erin said. You already did the important part. What's that? You didn't sign, she replied. And you documented. I hung up and sat there for a long moment. And that's when the realization hit me, clear and sharp. They never expected me to fight. They expected me to feel lucky I still had a job. They expected me to click accept and move on. But the moment I refused to carry their lie, the whole thing started collapsing. And I knew in my gut, the next few days were going to get ugly. Because when you expose the wrong person in a company like that, they don't apologize. They scramble. And sometimes they try to take you down with them. By Thursday morning, the building had that nervous quiet. Like everyone was told to keep smiling while the floor was being ripped up underneath us. At 8:12 a.m., I got a legal hold notice. Don't delete emails, chats, files, or notes tied to incentive compensation, vendor payments, Approvals, overrides, or special processing. Preserve everything. That alone told me this had crossed into attorney territory. At 8:26, Caleb's name vanished from Teams. Not offline. Gone, like the system didn't recognize him anymore. Jordan messaged me. Did Caleb quit? I typed back, no idea, just busy. I didn't share anything. I wasn't protecting him. I was protecting the record. At 9:03, Maya called. Ethan, can you come to HR? She shut the door and skipped the script. We may need you to answer questions with legal. Okay, I said. Then she asked fast. Did you take any company documents off network? No, I replied. Everything stayed on the internal drive. I have timestamps, and I never emailed anything outside. Her shoulders dropped with relief. HR wasn't trying to trap me anymore. HR was trying to survive. Maya slid a printed sheet across the desk, my revised incentive statement. Same header, same formatting. The correction line was gone. The payout amount was back where it belonged. Payroll will run a supplemental deposit, she said, as soon as finance approves. I looked at her. Who requested the revision? Corporate controller, she said. Nolan. Maya leaned in, voice low. Caleb told us you were confused and digging for leverage. He said you were threatening to escalate. I opened my notebook and wrote the sentence down. Then I asked, did he put that in writing? Maya blinked. No. Then it's not evidence, I said. It's a story. I stood to leave, and then my phone lit up. A text. Personal number. Caleb, you think you're smart? You just killed your career here. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Aaron and Nolan with one line. Received 9:41 a.m. after access suspension. 10 minutes later, Aaron called. Thank you, do not respond. If he contacts you again, document. This may be retaliation. At 11:20, IT security asked for my laptop. We're imaging devices connected to the incentive workflow, the tech said. Standard procedure. He handed me a loaner and a receipt with a case number. Real chain of custody. That's what serious looks like in corporate. At noon, the chaos turned physical. IT rolled through our floor, pulling laptops from empty desks. Security hovered near the elevators. Meetings got canceled with vague subjects. System maintenance, alignment, process review. In finance, maintenance means containment. At 1:30, Nolan asked me upstairs. His blinds were half closed. He didn't waste time. Legal interviews you at 2, he said. Here's what we found. He tapped a folder. Caleb used an override workflow meant for true corrections. He forced a discretionary payment through a vendor channel, then used your incentive line to balance the pool so totals reconciled. That's why it was wrapped as prior period correction. I kept my voice steady. So my bonus wasn't the target, it was the cover. Nolan held my gaze. Exactly. Then he added, 2 other employees show similar corrections. Smaller amounts, same pattern. My jaw tightened. Did they sign? One did, he said. We're reversing it. Before I left Nolan's office, he said one more thing. Do not help anyone clean up this, he warned. No back-channel explanations, no edits. If someone asks you to fix a file, send them to me. I nodded. Understood. Because in finance, the cover-up always looks like cleanup. Nolan slid an audit log extract toward me. Times, user IDs, workflow steps. Caleb's credentials repeated. Approvals routed around standard review. Comments like urgent and per leadership, with no actual leader attached. Under it, a line that made my stomach flip. Offset assigned to employee ID, mine. It wasn't just a number on my statement. It was a maneuver tied to my identity. At 2, legal dialed in. 2 attorneys, calm voices, precise questions. They asked what HR said, what payroll said, what Caleb said, how I accessed the ledger, where I saved it, whether I shared it, whether Caleb ever mentioned a vendor, a consultant, a special payment, or leadership directives. I answered only what I could support. Then one attorney asked, did Caleb ever ask you to approve anything outside standard process? Even informally? I paused. 2 months ago, late Friday, he'd slacked me a screenshot of a payment request. Rush, no backup, odd coding, and said, "Can you just sign off? We need this cleared today." I refused and told him it needed documentation and proper routing. "Yes," I said. Once, I declined. "Do you still have the message?" she asked. "I do," I replied. "I never delete." After the call, Aaron emailed, "Please forward the message. Do not discuss with anyone else." I forwarded it and added the date in the subject line so nobody could pretend it was out of context. At 4:18, the CFO sent a company-wide note about strengthening financial controls and reviewing incentive processes. No names, no details. But everyone read between the lines. By 5, the parking lot was louder than the office. And that's when I saw Caleb near the curb, talking to security, like he was negotiating. He spotted me and started walking over. He stopped a few steps away. "You really want to do this?" I kept my voice low. "I didn't start it." He smiled like a threat. They'll sacrifice you when it's convenient. I said the only thing that mattered. "I didn't sign your lie." His face twitched, and the guard stepped between us. "Caleb, you need to leave." Caleb stared at me, then walked away without another word. I watched him go, and I didn't feel triumphant. I felt certain. Because now the story couldn't be rewritten, and on my drive home, my bank app sent me a notification. But I didn't open it yet, not until I saw what the deposit description said. I sat in my car for a full minute with the engine off. My phone buzzed again. Bank alert. Deposit received. I didn't tap it right away, because after watching a company try to staple a fake correction to my name, I needed more than the number. I needed the description, the classification, the trail. When I finally opened it, the deposit was there, a supplemental payroll entry, and the description wasn't prior period correction. It was clean. Incentive sup run, FY25. The exact difference, less withholdings. My money, the way it should have been in the first place. I didn't feel excitement. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time in a week. The next morning, Maya emailed me a revised statement, new timestamp, new attachment, and one sentence that read like it had been written by legal. "Please find attached your corrected FY25 incentive statement. You are not required to acknowledge any prior version." Not required. That was the company admitting, without saying it, that the first document was poison. By Monday, Caleb was officially no longer with the company. That's how they phrased it. No reason, no accountability, just a clean corporate funeral. But the fallout wasn't contained to him. Because the moment Nolan told me 2 other employees had similar corrections, I knew this wasn't a one-off lapse. It was a pattern built on one assumption. Most people don't read what they sign. One of those employees had signed. Their amount wasn't $75,000, smaller, easier to swallow, easy to write off as tax weirdness. The company reversed it quietly, and they were told it was a system issue. I didn't correct them, not because I didn't care, because I'd learned something important. In a situation like this, people don't want truth. They want peace, and peace is fragile. A week later, Aaron called me for a final statement. "We're closing the employee-facing portion of this review," she said. "We'll handle the rest through legal." "Am I in any trouble?" I asked. "No," she replied immediately. "You did exactly what policy expects. You reported, you preserved, and you didn't sign." I waited, then asked the question I'd avoided all week. "Why me?" Aaron paused. "Because your record was convenient," she said carefully. "High payout, high trust, low likelihood you'd make noise. In cases like this, they pick someone who won't be believed if they complain." I stared at the wall, so he assumed I'd just take it. "Yes," she said, "he assumed you'd be embarrassed." That hit harder than the money, because it wasn't just theft, it was disrespect. A bet on my silence. On Friday, Nolan asked me to come upstairs again. He didn't offer sympathy. He offered options. We're restructuring controls around incentives and overrides, he said. I want you in corporate, not as a reward, because you understand what just happened and you're not afraid of documentation. I believed him. Nolan wasn't a culture person, he was a control person, and he'd just watched me do the one thing most employees won't. I forced the company to follow its own rules. But when he asked, "Do you want the role?" something inside me went still. I pictured the week, the glass room, Maya's careful smile, Caleb's pressure, the threat about consequences, how close I'd come to clicking accept, just to make it stop. And I realized I didn't want a better chair at the same table. So I said, "I appreciate it." But no. Nolan's eyebrows lifted slightly. Why? Because if one manager can do this, I said, it means the system tolerated him long before I noticed. I don't want to spend my career cleaning up what leadership chooses to ignore. He didn't argue. He just nodded once, like he respected the logic. 2 weeks later, I resigned. Clean notice, no drama, no exit speech. HR tried to pull me into an exit interview. I agreed, but I kept it factual. "What could we have done better?" Maya asked, pen ready. I looked at her and said, "You shouldn't warn someone about a $75,000 adjustment before they see their own statement, unless you already know it's wrong." Maya swallowed. "That's fair." And I left it at that. 3 months later, I was at a new company. Higher base, smaller ego culture, and a finance team that treated approvals like a law, not a suggestion. On my first bonus day there, I opened the statement without fear. It was boring, accurate, normal. And I realized how much stress I'd been carrying at my old job without even naming it. Sometimes people imagine revenge as fire. Mine wasn't fire. Mine was refusing to sign. Because the truth is, Caleb didn't fall because I screamed. He fell because paper doesn't care about charm. He fell because the moment I demanded documentation, his adjustment stopped sounding like accounting and started sounding like what it really was, a cover. And the best part, I didn't lose myself to win. I stayed calm, I stayed precise, and I walked out with my name intact.